Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting of Thursday, February 19th, 2026. And up for our consideration now is S-255, a bill that we've worked quite a lot on this year. This is an act relating to establishing a pilot law enforcement governance council in Windham County. You'll note, if you have the most recent agenda, that vote is put at the top. And unless we run into a huge cross teeth here, my plan is to vote this up today. I have also been informed that there may be an amendment coming on this bill, and the way things would proceed normally would be we would vote it out today, we'll go on notice tomorrow, and up for action on Tuesday. It may come to pass that we will pass over action on it on Tuesday in order to see the amendment, because the committee members would want to see that before we pick up second reading. I just want to put that out there. It won't necessarily be a major bump in the road, all things considered, but it could eventuate that way. Senator Host.
Unless I'm looking maybe not the right version of our agenda, I don't see the Vermont State Police or the Commissioner of Public Safety on our list of witnesses today.
We do.
Okay, okay. I have a not up-to-date version of our agenda.
I'm in the same agenda as you are, but I just assumed something had changed.
Yeah, I was going to express my discomfort voting on the bill without hearing from them.
Oh, I think they would appreciate it. And I did post it or link it on the door. I always try to get the latest version of
Perfect.
home. So with that said,
I'm usually running late and don't have time to check the door. Right, appreciate that. Thank you.
sure.
Hey, who's up first?
Are we all set?
We're in great shape.
Okay. So Kim is gonna sit in another chair and just listen to the proceedings. Kim McManus, do you want to go first?
Sure.
And again, welcome. You know everybody on the committee?
I do.
Okay. wonderful.
Thank you. I think we were here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Saying our yearly hello.
Okay.
For the record, Kim McManus. I'm with the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. Thank you for having us in on S-255. My testimony is very short, though maybe you have questions for me. But essentially, as we read this, and I should note, this is not a bill that I've circulated to our department. I did not survey our department, primarily because this is a county-based initiative. Reading the bill, this appears to have absolutely no impact on our department. It does not involve our state transport deputies in any way. The technical reading that we did, this appears to be an organization within a county that would be contracting with an independently elected sheriff rather than having multiple contracts. So we do not get into any of that from our department's perspective as far as how sheriffs are contracting their law enforcement duties. So we do not have any opinion on the idea, but we can relay to you that it has no impact on our department. This is a new idea. We will of course be watching as it develops and if it's implemented. And if we see any impact, we would come back and let you know.
Any questions for Kim? Ready? Well, you were correct in your predictions. That was 38 seconds and you're off the hook.
I promised someone I would say 3 sentences. I think I did a little more than that.
Yeah.
I did it fast.
Who wants to be next? I have Jennifer Morrison up next, but
I'm representing the
Okay.
mayor, if that's okay, and the state
Absolutely.
police, so I'm doing it all. That's
good to
all
see you, man.
right. Good to see everybody. I have 2 hats on today, representing Department of Public Safety. For the record, Matt Birmingham, I'm the director of the state police. I am representing the Department of Public Safety and the state police here. So thank you for inviting me in. If you don't know me, I've been the director for 10 years of the state police, and I've been 29 years with the state police. So I've been around a little bit. If it's all right with the committee, I'm going to kind of just give a quick operational assessment of where the state police is right now to give you kind of an idea of where we are.
Mhm.
And then I'm just going to offer some general thoughts. I've been speaking with Sheriff Anderson about this bill and want to be very clear that we of all agencies support regionalized models as they impact our operations greatly. And I'll explain that in a second. But as you all may or may not know, the state police, it's a full-time statewide law enforcement agency. We cover about 200 of the 251 towns in Vermont as primary law enforcement. The other ones either have contracts with sheriffs or municipal agencies. And that brings us to about 90% of the landmass, about half the population falls under the primary jurisdiction of the state police.
Can I just, Matt, so Matt, you may have responsibility for 200 towns, which is mainly because they've chosen not to have their police department.
Correct.
And with how many officers do you currently have?
I'm going to get into all that, Senator.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do provide specialized resources to all the communities in Vermont, from the largest to the smallest, including all of our special teams, which include, there's 13 of them, but the big ones, the tactical unit, the underwater recovery team, search and rescue team, the bomb squad, and the list goes on and on. So those, and the crime scene search team. So those resources are available to the entire state. So we have a lot of specialized resources. And additionally, the state police also has contracts with towns for additional patrols on overtime. As staffing permits though. So if a town asks for 40 hours a week from the state police, we may or may not be able to do that, depending on our staffing. So to the staffing, Senator, we're currently sitting on 316 sworn positions in the state police. So we have two staff sworn, which are the troopers with the badges and the guns, and the non-sworn, which is all of our civilian staff, we call it. So I'm going to focus on the sworn staff. We have 38 vacancies of that 316 currently, which is a 12% vacancy rate. It's improved greatly over the last 2 years, which is good because it was not great for a while. It was much higher than that. So I'm happy to say that we're turning a corner on hiring. And specifically go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
What do you attribute that to?
A lot of things. I would say nothing definitive. I would say, like with all sectors of the economy, we took a big hit after the pandemic, just finding people to employ. Post George Floyd, post police reform certainly was an impact on law enforcement around the country. A lot of young people were not interested in applying. Our applications dropped to 82% in a year after 2020. We're slowly rebounding. I think that the tide has turned a little, and we're seeing more people who are interested in this profession.
And I just would love to tag on at some point. Do you see an increase in the CTE attendance for the law enforcement CTE programs that we have?
That I do not know.
Okay.
I don't monitor that.
And the other question, I guess, is of your recruits, of the new people, what percent of them have already served or are serving, were serving in a local Vermont?
It's much less than it used to be. So we call those pre-certified officers. They already have certification through the Criminal Justice Council. It used to be, we used to generally do about 15 troopers per class twice a year. So let's call it 30 before the pandemic. We would generally get 2 to 3 pre-certified officers then. We're not seeing that as much anymore. I don't have the exact statistics on it, but the parity in pay has kind of changed that a little bit, meaning that we've all sort of gotten to a good point where, local law enforcement is being paid well across the state. So that sort of keeps people in place. And some people have different ideas about whether they want to be municipal officers and police in a municipal setting or be a state trooper, which is very different. So focusing just on Westminster, which is the barracks that covers Windham County in this pilot, that barracks currently covers 20 out of 23 towns. There's 3 that have their own police department. Generally, I know the sheriff has contracts and things, but generally Brattleboro, Wilmington, and Dover have their own departments. And we also cover the interstate there. Westminster does about 4,500 calls for service a year. In Westminster. Yes, 21 total troopers with a vacancy rate of almost 20%. There are 4 that are vacant. And so it's a very busy barracks. It's one of our largest land area barracks and one of our largest for troopers as well. And if I didn't mention it, covers the interstate, which is a lot of those calls for service.
Okay.
So since 2022, just to give you a little bit more background in terms of the staffing issues that law enforcement is, and so this staffing problem is not just the state police; it's all law enforcement in Vermont and in the country. Since 2022, because of the staffing crisis, the state police has had to work with some communities that have police departments, and 9 of them to be specific, that have asked for supplementary coverage from the state police because they don't have enough staff to do that. That's the first since I've been here. Our response to that was, we'll work with you and help you, but we can't provide the level of service that you're looking for. One of the first ones was Springfield, then Shelburne, Heinsberg, St. Johnsbury, Brandon, Richmond, Northfield, Hardwick, and Brandon have all officially asked and officially received our notice back on supplementing their services because they didn't have enough staff. So that kind of changed the conversation for us and really accelerated this conversation about regionalized policing, sharing resources, because I'm sure, as you've heard from the sheriff, there are very limited law enforcement resources in the state. And so we all work very well together, and we try and help each other when we can. This put the state police, the last 4 years put the state police in a really challenging position, trying to cover communities that are used to 24-hour police services that get a response within minutes sometimes to the state police, which we're still calling troopers out after 2 a.m. So the delay could be for a call in Springfield. It could be an hour. And so that was what we said up front to these communities. And we said, we can only manage life safety calls and emergencies. We cannot handle quality of life stuff. You have to deal with that when you have officers on duty. It worked. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. But it really opened our eyes to the need to have this conversation. So switching gears, that's kind of the operational tempo that we're in right now. The commissioner and I absolutely and unequivocally support regionalized policing. There's no question, and I applaud Sheriff Anderson for all that he's done to get this bill off the ground. As I'm sure you all know, especially those who've been around, this has been studied since 1967, I think, a long time. And I know Commissioner Sherling, when he was here, worked very hard to try and move the ball down the field. Got really close, got money, and then COVID happened, and everything changed. And there's 1,000 different opinions. I think officially, the Department of Public Safety and State Police don't really have an opinion, nor should we be involved in what towns need or want. We're always going to be there to serve the towns that we have. I will be very frank to tell you that we can't absorb any more work. I mean, we're already at our maximum ability to manage what we have. We'll certainly help, but we cannot be the backstop to a lot of these towns. And we've been very clear with them about that. Your services will be life safety only, and anything else we just won't be able to get to because we have limited capacity. I mean, we can only handle so much. So from where I sit, I'm just going to offer thoughts because I don't think the state police should be involved in. It will impact us in a positive way when it happens. So we will be able to work with whatever regionalized services are stood up and will give us some breathing room. So for that, I would be grateful. But from our statewide perspective, I just do want to offer a couple of thoughts. And I've already spoken to Sheriff Anderson about this, and we diverge a little bit on this. And I'm not saying I have the answers, but there are three things when establishing. I'm staying out of the funding piece of this. I'm not going to touch that. The governance structure of any framework, I think, that creates a regionalized police, whether it's pilot or whatever the case is. I think there are 3 fundamental things that need to be considered. First, the law enforcement executive must be able to be held accountable by an elected body and or an appointed body by an elected body. So I fundamentally believe that's an important component to policing, and that is nothing to do with the sheriffs and their elected status. I just think from a framework standpoint, I think you need to be able to hold a person accountable to those services that they're providing. The framework must also be able to be duplicated around the state without people in the mix. It has to be able to apply. I hope that it going in Windham County is successful, but we also need it in Chittenden County, Washington County, and Loyola County, and every county in the state. And we have to be able to duplicate that. So the framework has to apply all over the state. And thirdly, it can't be built, I'm kind of looking down the road a ways. I'm not saying a pilot is not a good place to start, but down the road, it can't be built around a person. It can't be built around a single entity or somebody who is elected that could be gone in 4 years, because then it could fail. And I have no doubt Sheriff Anderson's going to do a great job with this pilot and make it very successful. But what happens if Sheriff Anderson decides he doesn't want to be sheriff anymore? We can't, the towns, I believe, and the state police can't function with that sort of instability and not know exactly what's coming for the next X number of years, because we're going to adjust to whatever is built. And towns need that continuity and stability to know what it is they want and need. And it can't be built around a person because it has to exist without a person pushing it. In the end, I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to be the case in the beginning, but in the end, it can't be built around me. It can't be built around a sheriff. It has to exist and be duplicated on its own in any towns or a group of towns that want to do it. And it would survive any election. It would survive a town manager. It would survive a new colonel. It would survive a new sheriff, a new commissioner of public safety, a new governor. So those are my thoughts, and the commissioner shares those thoughts with me. But I don't come with a lot of great ideas either to make to help get there because it's very complicated. And certainly will answer any questions that you have.
So let me just, before we go to Senator Vygotsky, thank you for your service.
Yes.
I understand you are entering a new era, perhaps.
I perhaps am in August. Yes, it's been a great run, but after 29 years and 11 as a director, it is time for somebody else to step up.
You were a great face.
We're expecting a big party.
You're all invited.
And I do have some questions, but I'll yield to Senator Vygotsky.
Thank you. So you had said that Commissioner Sherling, which is really only one commissioner ago, had gotten close
One
to a
commissioner ago.
regionalized plan.
Yeah.
What was that, this, or was that something different?
No, something totally different.
Okay, I'd be really curious to know more about that plan. So I don't know if you have any information or if you're the wrong person to be asking that.
I don't, I mean, I would have to go back and,
Okay.
and reread the bill. It was not this bill. It was a very different bill. But he was able to secure money to get a regionalization going. Because, and the sheriff and I have talked about this, the hardest part about getting this going, which is why, the pilot will definitely work because it's the infrastructure. When you're developing a police department, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into that. And so that's where it gets very complicated is ensuring that you have a police station and cruisers and uniforms and all that stuff. And then, his effort got derailed when COVID happened, and it was unfortunate because it's the furthest I think we've ever gotten towards some semblance of something. But I do not have the specifics. Sorry.
No worries. I'm sure that feels like another lifetime ago. I get it.
Well,
I also appreciate you bringing up the importance of accountability because I have some pretty significant concerns about that. I assume if a state trooper is decertified, they no longer get to be a state trooper.
correct.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the accountability in this particular arena, because one of my significant concerns is the inability to respond.
Yeah, I'm gonna focus on accountability. If I'm envisioning a regionalized police force that serves multiple towns, I'm envisioning a chief or some leader of some executive of that police force that can be terminated if that police force is not doing what it needs to do for those towns by a council, as in this case, or a police commission that is appointed by the select boards of the town or some elected body, absent. We'll leave it at that. That's how I envision it, because that's the world that I'm in, is that if I'm not doing my job, the governor fires me. If troopers aren't doing their job, they get fired. And so same thing with chiefs. So that's I'm envisioning sort of a blend between those two things, the municipal chief and a regionalized police force.
That makes perfect sense to me. And then in terms of the sort of scalability, you know, being able to unroll this in all 14 counties or whatever, however we define the regions. In an instance like we have now, where we have very different elected people, some of whom have been decertified, how do you see this being able to be scaled and not just be centered on this particular person?
Yeah, so I'm trying to, and the sheriff and I have talked about this. I think that, I think the end goal, I think there's two things in my mind. There's this pilot that could be very successful and help get us off the ground. I think the end goal is that these regionalized forces shouldn't rely on the sheriff's department, because the reality is, I think there may be some, let's just get to the interest. What if the sheriff doesn't have interest in doing it? Let's push aside decertification and accountability. I know that's important, but like, I look at it as, what if there are towns in a county and the sheriff just doesn't want the liability of running a regional police force? They don't have to do it. And so even if the towns want to do it, they don't have to do it. And that's why when I say it has to be able to be duplicated effectively around the state, it can't be duplicated if it relies on a single person to implement it or to provide the services, not necessarily implement it, because I know the towns would make the decision, but the sheriff's department under this pilot would implement the law enforcement services. If they choose not to do that, then those towns they're out of luck. And so that's what I mean by it has to be able to be duplicated regardless of who's elected, regardless of who's got the in charge, and regardless of who the state police colonel is. It has to exist. If 4 towns get together and say, we want to create a regionalized police force, that framework needs to exist and be able to establish itself on its own.
And with minus that sort of this model of like, we're going to do this pilot. And I have no doubt Sheriff Henderson would do an excellent job with this pilot. I have concerns about some of the other sheriffs doing something similar, which then leads me to, we have a lot of regionalized services in Vermont that are spotty. They have big gaps in service. And I'm worried that doing something in this model recreates that, another layer of that. Is that a concern that you have?
I guess I don't understand your question fully. You mean, spotty service? No, I don't know. I certainly in this pilot, I have no doubt that Sheriff Anderson will do a great job providing services to people. I don't know what it would look like in other, I don't know what it would look like in other counties, how it would be established. So this is why I get back to, it can't rely on a single person, because, and I'll use the interest piece. If you are elected sheriff, there's nothing that says you have to do anything beyond your required constitutional requirements or legal requirements. And if they have no interest in the liability of policing a regionalized police force, then there's nothing that forces them to do it. And then the towns in that county are out of luck, and it can't be duplicated. So that's my point, is if it can't be duplicated for towns like Richmond and Heinsberg and Hardwick and Northfield and all these towns that have come to us, then what's the point of us doing it?
Well, and
That's the question. And I'm not
my concern.
right. Well, it's my concern as well, which is why I highlight it. And I had a long conversations with the sheriff about it. And I think we have different ideas about what that looks like, but we're both in agreement that there should be a framework that should exist in providing those services. So I don't know exactly what that looks like in terms of, I guess I would look at it as a commission or a council that towns could have representatives from, that would be like a police commission. And the select boards would decide who's on that. And that gives the elected officials direct control over the commission that has direct control of the law enforcement executive. That's sort of, I know it sounds really simple. I'm saying it really easy. I know there's a lot more that goes into it, but that's sort of how I'm envisioning the long-term success of this.
And then that commission would hire
the chief. Yeah. Or you have a representative from each select board makes up the commission, and they can hire the chief. Yeah, I know. See, I know.
No, and I appreciate that. One of my primary concerns with this bill, and what I did a bad job articulating, and you did a much better job, is exactly what you're talking about. So this goes very well in Windham County, and Franklin County says, well, I want that too. And Sheriff Grismore says, no, thanks. I'm actually not certified law enforcement. it's not, and so then frankly, Franklin County's just out of luck and perhaps Chittenden County, you know, sheriff says, sure, I will do it. And then we've layered another patchwork of services that isn't equitable across the state.
Right. And so that was my third point is it has to be able to stand on its own regardless of the people. It can't be built around people. It has to be built, it has to survive beyond.
Beyond one person. I mean, it's all built on people.
Right. Beyond a single person though, that could make or break it.
Well, and that's been a concern here.
I have voiced it
Particularly.
So if I could, I just want to maybe set the stage a little bit for this. And then I do have a question for Colonel Birmingham. So it's a 5-year sunset, first of all. So it'll give the sheriff time enough, because I'm guessing that recruitment is going to have to come into here somewhere. It isn't like the sheriff would have the availability to hire 8 new people tomorrow. It will take time for people to go through the academy, get certified, and then become available. And some of those folks may not be interested in working for this particular model. So I think to Senator Vyhovsky's point, with a 5-year plan, we will have in all other 13 other counties, at least time to see how this is working. And it doesn't, to me, the agency that's providing the police services is not that important right now. Because I think you can address that down the road. If we don't put a framework in place to at least try this, I think and let's be honest, if you sat down with a piece of paper and a pen and tried to design a more complicated, useless and dysfunctional system based on what we have right now, you'd be hard pressed to do that. It's just crazy the way we have it's like we used to say it, I think, in this committee, putting a house up and then adding little additions on all over the place to the point where you can't even recognize where you started.
Like a Vermont farmhouse, you mean?
Well, in some cases. So I don't know whether that allays any of your fear. I'm strictly looking at it as sort of a skeleton and a framework that would be able to be adopted and duplicated regardless of the agency that's going to provide that service.
But I don't know that it is, because it's relying on the existing sheriff's establishment. So if that existing establishment somewhere else doesn't want to do it, then that community has to start all over.
No.
They'll find somebody that they want to do and they'll hire them.
And it doesn't answer the concern that the sheriff cannot be fired.
Senator White.
No, I think that we should maybe go back to like the language in the bill, because I do think it actually doesn't give unlimited or even less accountability to the sheriff. In fact, it gives them more accountability. Because right now they're just signing contracts with individual communities. There's no larger council of communities that's giving them any sort of information. So I understand you're really hyper focused on this, but I just don't think the fears that you're expressing are actually borne out in the language that we see. And I think that's why you may have the same fears as the colonel, but he ultimately is positively receiving the bill. So you have this, if you both address, you have the same concerns and he's coming to a different conclusion. I think that may show that perhaps the language is more sound, but I do think maybe it's 3:09 and I was hoping we were going to vote on this bill. So I don't know what time we're planning to do that.
Well, Melissa from the Secretary's office did her weekly or daily check-in, and I nodded my head because they want to put it.
Okay.
So
we're
we're
still planning to vote.
I am planning
okay.
on moving this today. Yes.
Okay, I understand.
One way or the other, regardless of what the vote, obviously not regardless if the vote turns out a certain way, it's not gonna work. Yeah.
If Sheriff Palmer were sitting here proposing this, would you be this supportive?
I would be very supportive of Windsor County having access to a regionally done set. I mean, it's not about the sheriff. I do think it's not about that. But because this person is just the starting person for this, if a new sheriff comes in, they'd also be subject to the same thing, just like with the contracts. If Ryan Palmer was here today, I would be very worried for his mental health and stability and wouldn't be interested in moving this pilot forward. However, if a new sheriff from Windsor County came in who I had no familiarity with, I would be more inclined. So that specific person, maybe no, but I don't think that's the situation we're being faced with.
But
So
if
that's a
you
very
wouldn't do
different-
this for any sheriff, then you are doing this with a specific person.
I wouldn't do it for a sheriff who is not credentialed. And I don't think the council of people who would be set up in this pilot scenario would be either.
May I
So
interject
that's the,
here?
Yes, Senator Gregson.
Thank you. I actually think the council is your accountability governance structure. The whoever is the person chosen to run this pilot is not necessarily the sheriff. I mean, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. The council will elect or choose that person. Whoever is running will be accountable to the council, as will the quality of the work that's overseen. So I think the council is the credibility and the accountability factor here upon which we have to trust that towns will send an appropriate representative from either the select board, the trustees, or whoever's running it now.
and I would also argue that I would want any town to sign a contract with Sheriff Palmer right now, which is you may have a disagreement with the foundational structure of sheriffs, and that's legitimate, but they're the last resource we have available to keep people safe in a lot of these rural communities at this point. And I am more concerned with the risk of people in Windham County not having consistent, good public safety than I am for the risks that have been outlined. So it's weighing that. I don't think it's okay to leave these folks in a position where they have to wait for only life and safety responses from the VSP. That's not acceptable to me
Well,
as a taxpayer.
And
And I do
particularly-
think
yeah.
that they should have access to a regional framework to fund it. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Mr. Chair, can I just respond? I want to be very clear. The state police for the towns that we are responsible for, it is not just life safety. I mean, we service those towns. This was so for example, Springfield, they were faced with the tremendous, they were one of the first towns that were faced with the tremendous staffing shortage for their police department.
Right.
So they needed us from, let's call it midnight till 6 a.m. We would only go to life safety calls in Springfield during that time. All the towns we cover primarily, we cover
Oh, okay.
full law enforcement complement. Now, it's different because we cover huge areas and we have limited staff. So there are delays in response that you wouldn't see in a municipality. But generally, most of the people in those towns understand that because it's been that way since 1947. But the towns we cover completely and fully. I just
Thank
wanna
you
make
for that
sure.
clarification.
Yes.
I mean, I think I'm not sure that the people in Plymouth would say they are covered fully and fairly. I think that rural towns who are 45 minutes to an hour from a barracks do not feel they're covered fully and fairly. And one of the reasons we are looking at a regional policing model is that we do not have public safety equity in this state. Everyone thinks that when something goes wrong, somebody will be there right away. Well, that is not the case. I think around this table, we are very concerned and hold with a high value public safety equity, and how we can achieve that better in a very rural state is, I think, what we're trying to get at.
Let's remember this is called a pilot.
Yes.
You could use the word experiment, I guess, if you wanted to soften it. Just pilot. But all of it, not all of it, a lot of the questions that have been brought up will be answered as we unfold this.
Maybe if we call it a pilot, we can access some of the pilot money, Josh.
So I had another observation, if you will. You mentioned, Colonel, that it would give you some breathing room, I think is the way you
Yes,
put
it
it.
was great. I wrote it down. I thought it was great.
And I'm wondering whether, I think you said there's 21 or 23 officers assigned to Wyndham.
21 out of the Westminster Barracks,
Westminster.
but we only have 17.
Okay, so this is kind of one of those what if questions, and maybe you won't have a firm answer right away. But if this, after a couple or 3 years, appears to be working, would you be able to move some of those folks out and deploy them elsewhere that would actually lessen the pressure elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer is yes. We are constantly evaluating our resource deployment all the time between not just our barracks, but between our divisions. We have 3 divisions in the state police. We have our field force division, which is all the uniformed troopers that are assigned at the 10 barracks. We have our criminal division, which is the major crime unit, the detectives, all the specialized crime units. And then our support services division, which is support, the hiring, training, recruiting, internal affairs, all that. We're constantly evaluating our sworn resources across all 3 divisions and across all 10 field stations. And so as if a regional police force were to be stood up and the call, so part of that evaluation is looking at calls for service. If the calls for service in the Westminster area significantly dropped, we would consider moving those resources to either another division or another barracks, because it's based on call volume, the calls for service. It's based on population. It's based on a lot of different factors, highways, interstates, crashes, a lot of different things that we manage. But we would do it very slowly, though. This is what I get back to about the consistency and the continuity of making sure that this doesn't change on an election or on somebody who doesn't want to do it, because we don't react quickly to staffing movement. We're very methodical in how we do it, but ultimately we would reassign resources if they were not needed in a certain area.
Good to know. Senator Bielski.
Can I just have a clarifying question? Is your testimony that you support this bill or you support a model of
I
regional
support a
policing?
model. Yes.
Thank you.
Or are you on this bill?
There's a lot of I'm not prepared to answer exactly where I am on this bill. I'm here to talk generally about a model. The commissioner and I have not gotten to the specifics of this bill.
Senator Clark.
So just as we're looking at your resources, which I appreciate because they are incredibly helpful in so many different areas. But it just reminds me, you have 316 sworn officers, and 38 vacancies. How many how many people are in the special teams, the special units, and how many are sort of officers we're thinking of in Westminster and Bethel?
Right. So the majority of our sworn troopers are in the field force division in uniform. So in the 10 barracks. Yeah, that probably give or take 190 to 200 sworn resources in field force. And then the criminal division is anywhere between 65 and 80 troopers, and then the support services is around 15. So they're not equal divisions by any stretch. The field force is the largest because it's our primary function is to respond to emergencies and calls for service around the state. The special teams you would refer to are ancillary duties. So
right.
They're not, they're troopers that are assigned. Their primary responsibility is a field station or a detective's job, or they're assigned to a specialized investigative unit. And then an ancillary responsibility is they're on a tactical unit or they're on our bomb squad. And so that is not their primary job though. That is an ancillary duty. So there's only very few limited number of full-time special teams positions, excuse me. The rest of them are ancillary duties.
They come in with expertise. They're
specially trained, but their day job is to work in Westminster, answering calls for service. But they may be on the bomb team, and if there's a bomb call in Burlington, they'd have to leave and drive up to Burlington and go manage that.
Thanks. No, that's helpful.
Any other questions for the Colonel?
No.
We appreciate your time. We really do. And again, thank you for your service. I hope you find a nice warm island somewhere to get retired.
No,
probably not. I still need one.
What? To stay in Westminster? Are you kidding?
I have 2 other witnesses. They're both on the screen. Jeremy Evans, who's the police chief in Brattleboro, and also Shelley Banford, who is the town administrator in Vernon. If either of you have time constraints, if you could let us know, and we'll get to you right now.
Oh, and Jeanette's there. Hi, Jeanette.
And I see Jeanette as well. Okay, then I'll just go by what we have on the agenda. Jeremy Evans, you're up next from the Brattleboro Police Department.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it. For the record, Jeremy Evans, I'm the assistant police chief in Brattleboro. And since I haven't met any of you, I don't think before, I have about 30 years in policing in Vermont. Hold a master's degree in criminal justice and critical incident management. And started my career at the sheriff's department, actually, in Wyndham. Did 2 years there before I moved to Brattleboro. Here today, I think, to speak to you in support of this bill. I can tell you the policing structure in Wyndham County, as you well know, is very fragmented, to say the least, I think. And I was really glad to hear several of you talk about equity, because one thing that I've learned through my career is that there is not equity in policing services throughout our county. There's vast differences for people in the different towns that they're in. And I see that on a regular basis now, especially as an executive at our department, when I communicate with other communities, seeing the vast difference of response and capability that they're able to get. Especially since we only have a really small number, I believe 4 police departments in our county right now. So for me, why it matters to me in particular is both as someone who's lived and worked in Vermont for over 30 years. I've lived in towns here that have a police department in Brattleboro. I've lived in towns that don't have police departments. I've seen the vast differences that you can get in response, if at all, sometimes that you can get. And that kind of thing really concerns me. With our, for example, with our rural communities right around Brattleboro, we regularly see calls that can escalate, spill over into our community or spill over from our community into others, have delayed emergency responses. We have, over the last year, our police department has had over under 100 calls that we've responded to in other communities outside of ours, whether that's just backing up a deputy or a trooper on a car stop, or responding to a domestic assault in progress or a car crash. And that could be literally anything from we're just backing up and providing some support to being a primary responder to a call in another community, to providing presentations at schools for internet or body safety, all of those things. And to reiterate to the primary responder, we do that on a fairly regular basis, being a primary responder to communities outside of ours. So that having a more stable regional policing model there would be of great assistance to us. And like we said, too, from the unpredictable nature of it, having some sort of continuity would be great. Understanding that it's like limited in its time frame and its governance is good. I didn't like the Colonel had mentioned, I didn't spend much time really evaluating the structure or how it gets funded. I did speak a little bit with my town manager about the funding part, because I know that there was initial parts where there was some concern over whether all the communities in the county would have to have some sort of responsibility for funding. However, after speaking with the sheriff and with our town manager, being comfortable with, as long as it doesn't cause more funding issues for Brattleboro, that I'm fully in support of it. And that's about it that I had.
Did you have any questions for Jeremy Evans? Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and I appreciate you as, I think, one of 3 communities in Wyndham County that have a dedicated police force, speaking to us, because I think one of the things that was a concern for me was, well, if we create this regional framework and there's already existing police departments, how will those overlap? But if I understood you correctly, you think that this could potentially reduce perhaps your need for mutual aid service and those communities surrounding you, if they have a more consistent or stable partner from another police department or another law enforcement force. Is that the general understanding?
Yes, they'll be more stable for us and more, I think, more stable and equitable for those communities when they have police responding to them.
Thank you.
Senator Clarkson.
Thank you, Jeremy, for testifying. We really appreciate it. How big is your police force in Brattleboro?
We're authorized for 30 and we have 30 sworn and we have 28 currently.
And you cover your primary responsibility is covering a city of how many?
Yes, ma'am. Just Brattleboro, that's about 12,000-ish residents, along with the various people that come here during the day, whether to work or visit.
Yeah. So there is a great equity right there. So you have 30 people for 12,000 people. And we have at the barracks 17 for 23 towns, for different other towns. I mean, that there is a great, there you have it. It's just such a big challenge. But thank you for supporting this effort. I think this is a worthy effort and we appreciate your work and your testimony.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the assistant police chief? I think I gave you a promotion when I introduced you. No? Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Shelley Banford, who's the town administrator in Vernon.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm the town administrator in Vernon. We currently contract with Wyndham County for not only law enforcement, but for the animal control pilot program, which has been such an asset to this town and it's been so helpful. And it's made it so affordable for us to be able to offer those services in town and not rely on one person with limited time. We do have only 40 hours per week budgeted for law enforcement, which makes it difficult. Calling the state police leaves a lot of gaps. And so I think if we had a regional policing program, I think it would offer a lot of affordable services to not only our community, but we have a neighboring community that I don't believe has any policing at this time. And I think that it would be a huge asset to the region to be able to offer that and to bring more safety and security to our communities. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay.
I think it would be a great program. However, I don't know how we could make this happen. And I know there is concern to be able to facilitate this throughout the state. So I'm here to support it.
And you haven't received any negative feedback about this in Vernon? Is that
No.
correct?
No,
Okay.
Everybody here supports it.
Okay.
Welcome another option to be able to fill the gaps and have more security without bankrupting the town.
Yes, not
That
starting
is a
your
good
own
point.
police force.
Any questions for the town? I'm sorry, for Shelley? No? Okay. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay there and watch the rest of the proceedings.
Thank you.
Again, I'm not trying to sell this necessarily, but I'm trying to offer clarity, perhaps. This is a voluntary situation. No one is forcing any municipality to join if they don't want to. We've got the two amendments that we haven't necessarily talked about, but hopefully everybody's aware of what those two were. We're going to allow the legislative body in each municipality to make the decision and pull the trigger. No offense. And also that we will do that at an annual or special town meeting, inserting in lieu thereof the legislative body, and also that the grand list will not be the procedure, it will be the population. Yeah, Senator White.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we
Oh.
would,
Okay, I just had a couple of other things.
oh, yeah, go ahead then.
So it's voluntary, it's a pilot, there's a 5-year sunset on this. Someone may reach out and say that they're afraid this is a new tax and it will raise property taxes. That is not so. It's a county tax. It's not new. Folks down there are already paying for police services through the contracting and also through the town property tax. It's simply, if you want to look at it, a different route for those taxes to be collected and dispersed. So, I'm fine with this unless somebody has, in the room, any other additional comments? Yes?
In all fairness, on the money, I think that will be part of the 5-year pilot, is to see what the real costs of the regionalization of law enforcement, how much more equitable it can be and what it actually does cost to do it. I think that we need to know that before we even begin to think about rolling it out elsewhere, obviously. But I think it's such an efficient use of money. I think that it's a much more effective way to spend it. And I would just say to the other elephant in the room about this running on parallel tracks with our work on the county governance task force, that I hope we continue that work as well, because I really, I'm hoping that we'll maybe be adding that to something else to continue that work. So, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Senator Horowitz.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think it's a wonderful pilot to take a look at, and as the chair says, I think you're going to be able to adjust and change things and bring things back to us where we can tweak it and change it. And I think it's also laying the foundation for a whole bunch of other regionalization type things. And I mentioned it earlier, testimony like EMS, and all that stuff. So I think there's going to be a lot of people watching this as it moves forward, and I'm in favor of it. And there will be changes to this, I would predict, and I'm guessing you may be making recommendations to changes to this for at some point in time, and that's what I'm in favor.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Josh.
Josh Hanford from League of Cities and Towns. Also just speak in favor. I understand the concerns about a pilot with just a sheriff. But I think the value in this is, just as you said, Senator, we have a lot of regional needs. This is one, policing, and a model needs to be developed that we can deploy for other regional needs. And it doesn't have to be assumed that it'll always live with a sheriff as the model for this. And we need a real practical lesson of whether this council on government's concept for regional rural policing is applicable to solve the other regional issues we have. And that's the real value in this and why the league is supportive of it.
Right. Yeah.
Appreciate your testimony too. Senator Jeanette White, I see your hand up.
If I may,
Certainly.
Can we see your whole face?
thank you. Jeanette White from Windham County. And just so you know, I'm just a citizen here. I don't have any particular relationship with the sheriff, except that I've been working with him on this for a long time. But I would just like to address a concern of Senator Vyhoski and Colonel Birmingham that they raised about the wisdom of having this model or this regional plan be focused around a particular person who is the sheriff, because in this case it is driven by Sheriff Anderson, and he has been the inspiration behind it, and the towns are interested in it, but the governance council will answer all these questions. That's what a pilot is for, is to answer these questions. Who is the best? Where should this live? How does this live? How does this become sustainable so that if it can be replicated around the state? Because we might in 4 years or 6 years have a different sheriff who decides he doesn't want it or she doesn't want to do it. So this governance council will answer those questions. And if in fact this a regional model is what's needed, then they will come up with those answers. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we go right back to where we are right now as of today, the town's contract. But working with this council can work with people like Chief Evans. And I will say that you gave him a raise, a promotion, And he is getting that promotion very soon because unfortunately our Chief Hardy is leaving and Jeremy Evans will become the chief. But so it was okay that you called him chief. But so working with people like him and the police chief in Wilmington, where we met with the select board the other night, people, whoever replaces Matt Birmingham, working with these people who are very smart, the governing council will come up with what could be a really good a model that could be replicated around the state. So I think that we need to remember it is a pilot, and that's the purpose of a pilot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Always good to see you. Yes, Senator Clark.
And I didn't realize you were starting doing closing statements here, but I think what is great for, particularly for Brian and me, is that we began talking about this in 2017 and with Jeanette and that it was in fact, as we were thinking, at our most ideal, this would be that we would someday have regional public safety, fire, EMS, policing. Partly because at that point, when we were looking at it, we were having a crisis in our emergency services, in our EMS and in our volunteer fire departments. Just the dearth of new volunteers was really crippling so many of our volunteer fire departments. So actually, we were initially thinking about it as regional public safety. And to begin, this is a smaller bite at that piece, and I think this is a good starting point. And so for me, who's been working on this for almost 10 years with Brian, I'm really kind of excited to let this go and let this fly and see how it does.
That was a good closing statement.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Senator White, I think you had a motion to make.
Well, I want to make sure I do it correctly.
Okay.
So I would like to move a motion that we pass out of this committee S-255 with, I believe, 2 instances of amendment. So
Draft.
what draft?
1.1.
1.3.
1.3.
Oh, sorry, 1.1, now, if you're good, 91, yes. 1.1. Oh,
Okay.
1.1.
That's what I've written
Let me
down.
double check.
I want the draft with the 2 amendments. Really.
Yeah.
So that's
Tim, who's sending us that draft? 'Cause I'm-
So do we need to vote on the amendment separately and then the bill containing those amendments?
as amended.
So you could reconstitute your motion.
I would move
Just
that
move
we
that we
amend the S-255 as presented in draft 1.1.
Okay. You may call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
All right. Senator Clarkson.
Yeah.
Senator Morley, yes. Senator Mahosky.
No.
Senator White.
Yes.
Senator Collins.
Yes.
4-1-0.
Okay.
And I would move that we adopt as amended S-255.
Excellent.
We passed.
So you can do that in different ways.
Yeah, you just do it in
Senator
a separate column, just do the same thing on the same page. You can-
Okay.
All we've
I'll
done
show you.
first is adopt the amendment. Now we have to do the bill as amended.
Okay.
And you can,
So the bill is amended. Senator Clarkson.
yes.
Look at that later.
I'll show you.
Senator Morley. Yes. Senator Mahosky.
No.
Senator White.
Yeah.
Senator Collins.
Yes.
4-1-0.
And I think it will fall to me to be the reporter, which is good, unless you have a
I think
desire.
that is perfectly appropriate.
Okay. And I'm sure Tim will provide a section by section at some point. This probably won't be on the floor because I believe the secretary's office is closed. So we won't be able to show them what we did until tomorrow, which would make it on notice Tuesday, up for action Wednesday. But it makes crossover, it makes all the requirements needed. And we'll go from there. And again, there will probably be an amendment offered at some point. I don't know what that amendment's gonna be, but I can talk to the person that suggested that they might be amending it. It wasn't Senator. Lee.
Not me. I am aware of the. I will support it.
Okay.
Is it Senator
Right,
Hardy?
right.
No, well, no, I
Are you
don't,
doing
this,
this as
no,
a strike Tim?
no,
or
this is,
no?
oh, with the
Two,
amendment.
two instances of amendment.
Elect.
Would you be kind enough to email 1.1? Because I don't have a previous copy of it, so I'd like to print one.
I can print it.
Oh, great, thank you. It's okay.
Okay, committee, anything else today? I have another committee, regarding
You have-
judicial retention to get to.
Oh, you do?
I do. So, with that in mind, we will, adjourn for the day. We have only a couple items tomorrow. I understand we're gonna get some snow.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get you out of here as quickly as we can. And we will see all of you tomorrow.
You better straighten that out.
I was.
Okay, I'll check.